Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Empowered Hour. Today, I'm super excited because I have Molly Singer, who's the Executive Director for ESD Global. Molly, how are you doing today?
I am great and so happy to be with you.
So happy to have you. Molly, tell me a little bit about your role. You're covering so much ground. So I want to hear from you, and I think the audience would love to hear from you what your role entails, what your focus is. You're doing a lot of things coming up, and I'd love to hear about it.
Sure, I'm glad to talk about it. As I've already introduced myself, my name is Molly Singer, and really my job is I consider myself the facilitator. So maybe that should be my title instead of executive director at ESD Global. But I support our team to build networks worldwide that help individuals and communities end violence through their own power, knowledge, and skills. That's what we do. We work to increase confidence and empower individuals. I don't know, do we need to take a half a step backward to talk about what is ESD?
Yes, share from your own words what you think ESD is.
Sure. So ESD, it's the world of acronyms these days. ESD stands for Empowerment Self Defense. And ESD is a public health intervention, meaning a set of exercises and trainings designed by and for women to avoid danger, de escalate conflict, increase personal confidence in participating in social and economic systems, and increase efficacy, which means sort of problem solving capacity, the ability to say, yes, I can figure this out. And ideally, women are working together in developing cohorts so that they collectively can address violence and aggression within their communities through changing policies, advancing ESD, etc. So that's what ESD is. And I always think it's important because lots of people practice ESD. ESD Global is an organization that has a series of programs to promote ESD around the world and create a network of trainers. So I just want to separate ESD and ESD Global because there are so many great people doing ESD in the world, and we are part of that, but not all of it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Have you taken ESD?
Oh, I haven't taken it yet. I've watched it. I
Um,
was signed up. Well, I started in 2020, so it's the period of COVID right now. And, I haven't been able to sneak in between all of these COVID variants that keep popping up, but it's on my list of things to do. I can't wait to take it.
awesome. Um, when it comes to your own process of empowerment, um, how was that for you? I think that taking on a role like this, uh, people are looking at you as a leader. They're looking at you for this commanding presence and to steer the way. Yes, that's right. So what was that like for you? Just your personal process of empowerment.
Well, I'm just going to do a little tense check on you there. I don't think you can say what was that like for you because empowerment is always happening. We are continually moving
Absolutely,
along the spectrum of empowerment. So
an
I can tell you how it
ever-been thing.
has been, right? I can tell you how it has been. And the interesting and ironic thing about empowerment and almost everything in our lives is that what seems like a strength is a weakness, and what seems like a weakness is a strength. So I think empowerment grows out of really kind of bad situations. So in that way, it's a double-edged sword because you're you're faced with some sort of oppression, some sort of situation that you don't want to be in, whether it's just in your personal self, I don't want to be so shy, or within your context, I don't want to be so held back by my family. And for me, it was more of a family than being shy. I'm not a shy person. So that to me is always very interesting because it's almost like when life is going great, you need a little something to like help you continually readjust your empowerment. Because when I was younger, I thought empowerment, that means I'm loud, proud, out there and shouting. And now, as the executive director, I feel the less I say, the more empowered I am to empower other people. You know, like I said earlier, I kind of feel like I'm the facilitator that helps other people achieve great things. So I think that's kind of how my empowerment process has gone. But as a child, it was, continually, a back and forth with my family who were I have older parents and they were depression children and very, very conservative in terms of their gender roles. And I come from a working class family, so they didn't really understand the importance of college, all of that kind of stuff where I had to, you can't burn down the house you live in. So you have to exist within the framework that you know and try to change it. And to me, I think that's what a lot of empowerment is about, changing things in our world.
Well, I mean, that's a full answer. I which is great. I think that you're right. What you're talking about is spot on. So many times we just think, I want to be empowered, and I'm going to take this one lesson or this one course, this one training, and woo, life is good. And it doesn't work that way. So, like, I guess this ties into the next question of why you believe everyone needs ESD. But I also think that part of the process is like ESD Global has this teacher of teachers training and this opportunity to do continual growth. So why do you believe everyone needs ESD?
I think everybody needs ESD in the same way that everybody needs art, everybody needs literacy. ESD is one of the lenses we use to understand the world. And there are many lenses we use to understand the world. So if somebody comes to me and says, everybody needs meditation, I'm not going to argue with them and say, no, everybody needs ESD. Not everybody needs meditation. I mean, they are all practices and we get them in kind of doses, right? We choose what we want. It's like making a stew. Everybody makes a stew, but there's different ingredients, but there's a lot of common ingredients across whatever we're making. And I find it similar with these practices that enable us to understand and center ourselves internally, which just strengthens ourselves to collaborate and to work independent externally. And that's why we need ESD. In addition to just having, the life skills, we need ESD for self-defense and the ability to de-escalate violence in the same way that everybody should know how to swim or know CPR or something like that. They're life skills that just help us get on. And I would, more, I think I use my ESD skills more in the day to day than I do swimming or CPR. Fortunately for CPR, unfortunately for swimming, I suppose.
Nice. Um, yeah, it's interesting because for me with ESD, it's so different from the quote unquote traditional styles that a lot of people think of when they think of self defense. And I've been in debates and shared my views and everything coming from a martial arts background. I did want to hear from you what you thought the difference was between ESD, empowerment self defense, and other self defense styles that are out there. And I think that you touched on it with saying that you use ESD with swimming, you use ESD with but I just wanted to hear from you.
I'm not going to be able to give you a very good answer because I've never studied martial arts. I grew up very athletic and doing a ton of sports, but martial arts never crossed my path. And so I don't know enough about martial arts to be able to speak knowledgeably about it. But I think it's ESD is a practice like so many other things. And
Yeah.
it's more about prevention than about defense. It's more about reducing violence, uh, moving away from violence than it is encountering or confronting it.
Yeah. And with ESD Global and how that differs from, other opportunities out there, I love ESD Global because it is so open for people from different modalities and from different styles to come in and learn these tools. But I also wanted to hear, and I also wanted to hear from you how ESD Global has these opportunities for people who are in the industry. um, what are those opportunities available, and how can that be beneficial for them?
Sure. Well, I think ESD Global has opportunities for any range of people. I mean, individuals that, as you say, are in the industry, depending on how you define the industry, there's martial arts, but there's also individual empowerment, there's community development, there's social work. I mean, I really think of ESD as a public health measure. And so I think there's almost an innumerable amount of paths to the top of the ESD mountain. So I think for practitioners of martial arts, they will especially enjoy using ESD because it's like they have their set of tools and they're learning how to use them in new ways, just like an artist, right? An artist might be a sculptor and then they learn how to apply their perception of the world and their skills to painting or to ceramics or something like that. And I think it's the same for people that practice martial arts. But I also think for social workers, for public health officials, they are going to think about how, this is really a social service and social work, psychological intervention and set of tools that people use, because you could practice ESD and never, and I guess this is sort of ideal that you never are in a fight. You're so good at ESD, you avoid all conflict, right?
Yes.
And then likewise with public health, I know somebody, you know her too, Sarah MacArthur, who once provided a training to individuals, formerly incarcerated individuals, and they said to her, it was an ESD basics training. They said, if I knew this before I committed crimes, I never would have committed crimes,
Mm,
because they found themselves in situations and their only way to get out of it was violence. They didn't know how to avoid violence. So, I think it's really a tool for, well, for everybody. Like, we both have had the Kool-Aid, so we both agree on that.
yes. Yeah. No. It's interesting because you do utilize these tools and realize that you don't have to fight. There's no need to. One of the statistics that I got from the ESD Global manual that was given out from El Halev my first year in 2019 was talking about how 75% of all physical confrontations could have been avoided through verbal communication, the feel out stage. And I think that that is just so important. If we set the boundaries first off and people know where we're coming from, is there a need for that physical, physical confrontation, which you don't necessarily have to go through?
Yeah.
When it comes to your work, so something that really drew me to you, and it was, when we first met, we had a long conversation
Mhm.
about race and equity and cultural competency. Like for me, I'm very picky when it comes to the word cultural competency because I never think that you can actually be culturally competent in somebody else's culture, but you can be culturally incompetent.
Yeah.
So that it's always important. Um, why is it so important in this industry, and what are the dangers with not being culturally competent in this industry for this work?
Yeah, well, I think cultural competence, it's like empowerment, right? It's one of those things we're striving towards. We're moving into, I don't know that we're ever have landed. We're
Yes.
continually moving towards it. And it's important because, first of all, many people engaged in empowerment, self defense are themselves survivors. And so they have this, a background, a foundation of trauma that they are working through. So, and that is in and of itself a cultural aspect. And then the violence, nonviolence, day to day existence of individuals, especially in times of stress, is highly cultural, right? I mean, for me, I'm Irish Catholic from a working class family. And this is not to, I am a person with white privilege. I'm not trying to hide that or cover it in any way. And I come from a cultural center that has a way of responding to conflict, has a way of avoiding conflict. It has, all of these kind of under layers that is vital to understand if you're going to understand me. And I'm the least of people that has been oppressed in the world, right? So it's so important not only to understand sort of individuals by their ethnicity, but by their by their class background, by the region where they're from in the United States or in the world for that matter. Look at me being US centric there. It's everything. And I think, like you were saying, no one is ever culturally competent, but lots of people are culturally incompetent, which is why less is more. Listening is always better than talking. I have my graduate degree in cultural anthropology, which is something you learn. You learn to be a very good listener as an anthropologist.
Yeah. No, and I really appreciate that about you. Just I think that it is so important for people to listen and learn. I share this story a lot when people are talking to me and wanting examples of cultural competency and being culturally incompetent. And I remember when I was a lot younger and my brother was first dating my sister-in-law, I would constantly correct her English. And then I went to Brazil for their wedding, and I realized she knew three languages and I knew one. It was just like, wow, wow.
and, and for dessert at their wedding, they serve some humble pie.
Oh, exactly. I felt that way. I would point at things and be like, what is it? And
Yeah.
it's great for someone who was kind enough to share what it was in English. So it is just such an amazing eye opener. And I think for Americans especially, but I really love that ESD is striving for that goal to be more culturally aware when it comes to this industry, because it is so important, because so many different cultures are dealing with the pandemic from different lenses, or dealing with different things from political issues and everything else. You have a lot. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, and to me, the key word to that is striving. I'm always suspicious when I hear anybody say, I'm not racist, because to me, I strive to not be racist. But I do, in all honesty, still catch myself sometimes and have to, like it's in my brain. And I have to stop and say, like, you just had that thought. It might be about hearing a dialect or something like that. And we just have to say we are striving towards it, because to me, anybody who claims that they are not racist and not capable of racist behavior and things like that, I think they're lying, because we are so acculturated to differentiation, whether it's men to women, culture to culture, ages, classes. I just think that's important to highlight.
I always think of the People's Institute and their definition of racism, and it's race privilege plus power equals racism. So you could I look at my dad who's Scottish and blue eyed, and and he struggled growing up. He was the kid who had the duct tape on his eyeglasses and had the secondhand clothes, and he would get really frustrated when people would talk about these different issues, because he's like, well, I've struggled. And as he went and evolved with his racial identity development and understood that just because of his skin color, he might have gotten different opportunities that other people didn't, or
Yeah.
he might have been able to walk through certain doors that other people couldn't. So just understanding that, I think, is a gift.
Right.
Um,
And knowing not, there have been times in my life when I, like your father, have wanted to say, but wait, that's not fair. But wait, I mean, you just have to go, never mind, Molly, you really do not understand the whole context here. Just take their word for it and don't try to be right about something. Just go along with the water and figure it out later, because making an argument or a distinction over this is really cutting you off from people and not connecting you to people.
Yes, yeah. And even as a mixed race person who has experienced different things when it comes to racism, tokenization, and different issues, I do think that it's still important, regardless of what your background is, to be aware that other people have different experiences, and your experience might be one particular avenue, and someone else might have a completely different experience, and both of those are valid. So being very aware of that lens, and also being open to listening and learning, because I learned so much in so many different trainings. It's definitely been an eye opener.
Yeah.
uh, I wanted to talk about ESD Global's goals for 2022. You have got some really, yes, woo.
Woo! The world's not watching me, but I'm flexing my muscles quite literally.
um, so yeah, tell me about it. What's going on?
Well, I think as the Buzz Lightyear would say, 2022 and beyond. But in 2022, our goal is to break free of COVID. And as a part of that, we're planning on having 22 trainings, drawing individuals from 41 countries. And if we have 22 trainings, we will train about 300 individuals. And within a year, those 300 individuals will have in turn trained 30,000 individuals in their community. So that is super exciting for our in-person training. And then we have a couple of other things going on. We're working very hard next year on creating regional instructor teams. So this is working with people who have taken a number of ESD trainings, and they're to the point now of, I call it, kind of becoming the professor. They're going to become the instructors at our trainings to teach teachers. And that is exciting because it's, of course, more culturally relevant that we'll be able to have regional folks. It's a cost savings that we won't have to fly people all over the world. And I think it's going to really help scale ESD trainings, ESDG programs. I really do kind of see it like a virus, because you reach one, teach 100. And, that is just so it's super exciting. And we're also really vamping up our online training next year and our mentoring. So ESD Global has been around about 4 years, and we've had kind of a patchwork approach, because we've tried lots of things, and that's a great thing. Our founder Udit is really going like, yeah, let's just try it. And next year we're going to try to create some kind of boundaries and protocols so that everyone going through ESDG training and a 2-year mentorship is getting the same set of information, and they're being trained in the same way. And again, it will be different from region to region based on what violence is like in that region, what culture is like in that region, but we're going to make sure that the same ingredients are in everybody's stew, even if they add different spices or additional ingredients to it.
Very cool. Um, wow. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. Well, I look forward to seeing everything. Um, I look forward to being a part of stuff. You know me.
And I look forward to your being a part of that.
Yes, it's going to be really cool. All right. So, we've been talking about power women and shooting for the stars and all this other stuff. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, that's one of my questions that I ask people. Um, what would my superpower be? Gosh, why didn't I think about this ahead of time? I think my superpower, it would be a language superpower that I would could kind of intuit every language and not just the baseline expression, but really the power of language. And that would my superpower would be able to be polyglottal.
Wait, what? What is
Po-
it?
po- Polyglottal, like a polyglot, that I would speak lots of languages.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that would be really cool. I
What's
think
your
my
what's
situation,
your superpower?
I would have appreciated it. Oh, gosh. Wow. I don't know what my superpower. I got to think about my superpower.
I think I asked you this at one point, though. I don't remember. That's one I like to ask that question of people.
I
Of
love
course,
the idea of being able to fly, but I feel like that would be self-serving, and I'd want something
yeah.
more profound.
I dream in flight a lot. A lot of my dreams, I have the ability to fly. Yeah.
You too. Yeah, my last one, I was going down a rainbow. That
Mm,
means you're supposed to be very creative if you can fly in your dreams.
I'm not surprised about that.
This is a good thing. This is good.
Absolutely. Creativity. Maybe that would be my superpower,
There
that
you
I
go.
could do any art form.
Ooh, that would be fun. So here's one. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, it would be to rebel more. It would. I did so much because I'm one of those people that I'm very kind of moderate in my approach. I sort of am continually criticizing all angles of approaches. And I just wish that as a young person, so as a young person, I was restrained. I was constantly like, well, on the other hand, well, I don't know, I just thought too much. And I wish that I had just like unleashed my power and my anger and my fury upon the world.
That
That's
sounds
what I wish I had done.
epic.
I do. I mean, that is without a doubt.
Story. Yeah. No, that sounds cool. Um, so if you could give one piece of advice to girls today, now I think about this because girls today, I am floored. I remember being asked in 2012 to go into a middle school because of bullying and teen pregnancy. And I was like, what? In middle school? Like I
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
freak out reaction. But these are real issues. There's so much that young girls face today that they never had to face before. What's a piece of advice that you would give to them?
Well, besides my advice that I would give to my younger self to let your fury out, it would be to learn how to use your hands,
Mm,
to learn how to build things, to knit things, to write things. To me, the tactile world, if you have tactile skills, you are grounded and you can achieve anything.
awesome. Yep, I believe it.
Yeah.
Um,
And unleash your fury.
and unleash the fury.
Yeah, the Rebecca Traister Good and Mad book was so transformative to me. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get mad at the world. I've been holding it in.
So that would be your book recommendation.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic book. It was so vindicating for me.
I do talk to people a lot about how I think that it is important for you to feel mad. Like I've
Oh,
had clients who come to me and they're like, I'm amazed. They'll do a session and they're like, I have been trying to meditate away all of my frustrations, and you told me to connect with my anger. they're like, I think that actually made me feel so much better. Because as
Well,
women, we constantly are. We're told to, like,
yeah,
uh, tamper down.
I think it's, well, according to Rebecca Troyster, I'm not going to take credit for this, but she says it's part of the reason that girls cry more is because they're not allowed to get angry, so they get sad. And that is just a downward cycle to depression.
I
It's
get it.
funny. Yeah, when I was a kid, I did a lot of leaving my house, and I always had a tennis racket and or a soccer ball, and I would go over to this. I lived in a town with a university, go Bucknell, and I would go over to these tennis courts where they had a wall, kick my soccer ball or like whack the tennis ball against the wall just by myself. And I'm sure it was to get anger out. I didn't think about it at the time, but it was just like, it felt so good just to physically unload on something.
Yeah, my mom used to teach something called Say It Straight, and she was one of the early on people who was taught nonviolent communication. And she actually had me work on basically doing anger work, where she would have me take a racket and like whack at a pillow or do these
Mhm.
different things. And so I see the benefit of it. I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
It's really important. So last question for the interview.
Okay.
How people find you?
How can people find ESD Global? People can find, and then I'll get to myself too. So ESD Global is ESD Global Self Defense. So esdglobalselfdefense.org, at ESD Global Self Defense, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, etc. So look for ESD Global Self Defense. Molly Singer is on Twitter at DexMGMT. So I used to own a business called Dexterity Management. So DEXMGMT. And again, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the whole 9 yards, DEXMGMT. You can also go to DEXMGMT and .com and see my former website that is, yeah, dying a sad death of starvation.
Someday it might be resurrected, but I know the ESD Global is so happy to have you.
Yes,
Uh,
and I'm glad to be here.
yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. And for more, definitely check out in the description her bio, and also has links to all of the ESD Global and the website and everything else. And Molly, thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you very much, Tasha. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye bye.